Good evening, my dear colleagues. Welcome to Engage Zoom Series 49. Today, our guest speaker is Dr. Aysel Kılıç, a dear friend, an outstanding colleague of mine. Dr. Aysel Kılıç is a full-time academic at the ELT department of Anadolu University, and she has been working in the field for 31 years.
Yes.
She looks very young, I'm aware of that, but she's a veteran teacher, in fact, academic, I should say. She is a CELTA trainer, and her interests include teacher training, professional development, assessment, materials design, blended and flipped classroom. This evening, the title of her talk is Let the Students Speak. Thank you, dear Aysel Hocam, for being our guest speaker this evening, and welcome again. The screen is all yours.
Thank you, Hocam. Thank you for the invite, and I would like to thank everyone who's here tonight, and I hope you find it useful, and feel free to ask questions. And I think this is a great opportunity. I know this is a great opportunity for me because I'm meeting new friends, and I'm seeing my students, former students. Well, I'm really excited. You can tell, I guess. All right, let them speak. I think as teachers, we all want our students to speak in English, but sometimes we don't know how. And this is something I've been asking myself, and this is my professional goal. Increasing student talking time all the time in my lessons is it's always one of my goals in my lessons. Why is increasing student talking time important? I'll start with that question. And if you want to share your ideas, I'll give you a minute to think about it, and just please raise your hand and tell us why you think increasing student talking time is important. Just unmute yourself and share your idea. All right, if no one is willing to say anything. Increasing there's this famous saying, we all say that it's the students who need practice, not the teachers. And that's why I guess we encourage our students speak. And interaction, this is what Hedge says, interaction pushes learners to produce more accurate and appropriate language. And they need to be able to use the language they have learned. They need opportunities to practice the language. What do you do in your classroom to increase student talking time? If you can just put your ideas in the chat box or raise your hand and say it out loud.
I guess I can.
Seçeneği Hocam, thank you.
Yeah.
You're a lifesaver. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I try to include more pair work and group work activities in my classes so that they can have more chance to talk.
All right, thank you. Any other ideas?
We have lots of brainstorming,
Yes.
discussion, debate. And then, of course, I love games, regardless of the age of the students, because games, in quotation, really give our students a chance to say something. It may be a word, a phrase, a cliche, but still they feel relaxed because they're playing a game.
Yeah, anxiety goes down, right? So they like it a lot. Any other contributions? Thank you, Hocam. All right. So we have heard some ideas in varying interaction patterns, including games in our sessions. What else can be done to increase student talking time? I don't know if you can see the screen. You see, this is a page, the cover page of one of the units of the Headway Upper Intermediate, 5th edition. There's a very cute dog, there's a quotation, and there are 2 questions. My question for you is, how would you use this cute picture and the quotation in your classroom, and the questions, of course, with your students? Oops, sorry. Any ideas you would like to share?
Actually, the quote itself doesn't mean much to me. Am I missing something here? So that you can see the place you came from with new eyes. This is too deep,
Well,
very deep.
sure, sure. Well, personally, this is just a page from the book, and as we keep telling to our students, you are the boss, not the book. You can change it as you wish, as you like. With my students, I would say I would use a think, pair, share activity. I would start with an individual work, and I'll give my students time to, after setting the task, giving the instruction, I would give my students 1 minute to think about the quotation, the cute dog, and the questions. And I would also include a quick write activity. So this would give them a chance to note down the ideas, otherwise they would disappear. So they would quickly note down the ideas they have, and then I would pair them with another student so that they can discuss together. When you read the instructions in the book, you see it's like a teacher-fronted whole class activity. There is no hint of pair work or group work there. At least I couldn't see. But I would definitely use this as a pair work, as Setenay Hocam said, and I would incorporate think, pair, share into this stage of the lesson, because when students, first of all, start thinking on their own, they can generate ideas, and so they would be ready. And when I put them together with their partner, this gives them a chance to talk to each other. And when it's time for teacher-fronted whole class discussion of the question, then they would have already rehearsed in their smaller groups in a secure environment. So they would feel more comfortable to talk about the topic when it is teacher-fronted whole class discussion. And when I do the teacher-fronted whole class discussion, rather than responding to what students say, I would elicit what the other students think about the topic. Rather than me reacting to or responding to what they say, I would just involve all other students to share their ideas and what they think about this topic. Another way to do it is after think, pair, share, I can turn it to a pyramid discussion. So I can bring pairs together, so it becomes groups of 4, and then groups of 4 talk together. And then groups of two groups of 4 I can bring them together, so it becomes a group of 8. So basically it starts from individual work and gradually becomes a whole class activity. So it doesn't happen like a teacher-fronted whole class activity at once. So this is how I would do it. This brings me to wait time in a way. So the quick write and giving them time to think is related with wait time. Sometimes as teachers can be a little bit impatient. We ask our questions and we want immediate response from our students, but and we fail to remember that students need to process the question. They need to conceptualize their answers. They need to think about how they are going to give the answer, and then they will be ready to articulate it. So it is quite a long process. So we should give our students time to, first of all, understand the question. And if they cannot, they may ask you to rephrase the question, for example, if they still have doubts, and they can think about what they would say as an answer to that question and how they would say it. So we should be a little bit patient when we ask our students a quick question. And we will go back to Setenay Hocam's interaction pattern. Varying interaction pattern is very important. When we think about speaking lessons, of course, pair work and group work is inevitable. We always, it's like the default of speaking lessons. There's always a pair work or a group work in a speaking lesson. But what about the other lesson types? The reading lesson, the grammar lesson, or I don't know, any other lesson other than speaking lesson? Would you include pair work? Of course. Good, I can see the nodding. All right, this is a grammar activity, next generation grammar by Pearson. How would you use, this is our good old gap fill activity. How would you use it?
I wouldn't use this in its
wouldn't.
original form for pair work, because this is definitely for individual work.
Sure.
But we can change it a little bit. Maybe we can remove the verbs. By the way, I hate this kind of activity. Remove the verbs, and then maybe give pair A the sentences and then pair B the verbs, and they, without showing their own information to each other, they can just read the sentence and try to find the verb that goes in there, and then, oh my God, correct tense, of course. Aysel Hocam, I really hate this use the simple present form kind of activities, but this original activity is not suitable for pair work, but we can, of course, adapt it.
All right, adaptation is one solution. Well, thank you, Hocam. I didn't have that in mind, to be honest. I was looking for some other kind of answer, but this gave me a different idea. I like that. Thank you. Well, I'm not against this kind of activities, different from Aydın Hocam, because to gain control over the structure, students need some kind of controlled practice activity. But especially in the feedback stage, after students work on the task on their own, I would definitely ask them compare their answers in pairs before teacher-fronted open class feedback, because students can sometimes feel insecure. They may not know whether they did it correctly or not. So before we check the answers together, we can just give them time to compare their answers in pairs and see if they have similar answers or not. And this gives students a kind of reassurance. They know whether they did it correctly or not. If both of them did it wrong, then there's support there again. So this gives students a chance to compare their answers and feel more confident when it's time to give feedback to the whole class. The other thing I would do, I like exploiting activities a lot, because this is one activity, it's a gap fill, and students fill in the gaps using simple present. I cannot see the whole instruction. After they get feedback on the accuracy of the answers, then they can personalize these statements, what they think about these activity types, what their teacher do in their classes, to practice or to make learning English fun. So a second step might be talking about these statements in pairs after peer check. So this mechanical controlled practice activity may turn to a meaningful activity by helping students personalize the activity, relating it to their own learning context. All right. The other thing I really like, I think we're all familiar with the concept scaffolding. I don't know if the picture represents scaffolding or not, but it's a kind of support system. All right. If you look at this activity, my question is, would this activity generate a lot of student output? So what do you think? I like this activity. If you would like to say anything about the activity, please feel free to contribute. I would really like if you contribute.
Hocam, the stages seem meaningful to me.
Mm-hmm.
Planning, speaking, sharing, and reflecting. So I guess they plan as in pairs or groups,
Mm-hmm.
and they share. And afterwards, they reflect their ideas, maybe in bigger groups or to the teacher, to the whole class. So I can say so. There's a lot of output.
Thank you. Thank you, Setenay Hocam. Any other ideas?
Well, I guess Setenay Hocam and me are the
spokespeople.
only ones giving answers. I think it's okay. Do I love it? No, but it's okay. What I like about it is controlled somehow, but it also gives some kind of freedom and leaves some room for creativity and imagination, especially if you look at the second part of the activity. That's what I like about it. So there's some control, but there's also some freedom to come up with their own ideas.
Thank you, Hocam. What I really like that this is a very low level. This is A1, A2. So students are elementary, more or less. There's a very clear outcome because they need to, the product is introducing their friend as a result of the interview. And it is well staged. So students are gradually, students are guided in a way to work on the task. But what I really like, which I couldn't share it here, is there are 4 other pages that goes with this task. So before even they were introduced to this task, students are asked to listen to a model, an interview, and an introduction. And because they don't know the grammar yet, they practice how to write questions. So there's a little bit of support on language. And they also talk about and study how to organize an introduction. So there's a little bit support on that. And because it is speaking, there is also a pronunciation component where stress in sentences. So after students are supported with language to feel more secure to fulfill this task or to do this task, they are given the task. And in the unit, of course, they learn about the adjectives they can use to describe people. So they are not only supported in terms of language, but they're also supported in terms of content, the vocabulary and content. So most of the time, speaking activities are challenging for the students because they don't know what to say and they don't know how to say it. So when you scaffold speaking activities somehow to support or to close this gap in your students, it would help them to speak more fluently. I hope I'm not going fast. Okay. So this is what I really like. The other thing I would like to talk about is monitoring and feedback. Yes, we ask our students talk, we put them in pairs or in groups, they talk. And what do the teachers do while they are talking? We monitor, right? We monitor, we listen to our students, and active monitoring and taking notes is very important. While students are working in pairs, it can be a speaking activity, they are working in pairs generally during the speaking activities. Our job is to prompt when we feel like students are stuck, they cannot produce anymore, to make ourselves available and to take notes so that we can help them with the language. So that's what this teacher is doing, taking notes as he's listening to the students. So feedback is very important. I think no one disagrees with that idea. Feedback is important because students want to know how well they did while they were speaking. So in a way, we give our students information on how well they have performed during the speaking activity. So why do we give feedback? What is the role of feedback? One is to motivate our students, of course. What else? To encourage them, right? To help them understand what their problems are. And of course, to help them see how they can improve. So noting down student language is very, very important, especially for delayed feedback. Okay, these are the learner errors. This is learner language, let's not say errors. This is the learner language teacher noted down while this poor teacher was monitoring. This is the language he noted down, and then he put these on the board. What would you do next?
Aysel Hocam, can I ask you something?
Sure.
What was the aim of the teacher? Because the aim of the activity was fluency. So is it going to be a kind of a delayed feedback?
Yeah, this is going to be a
The
delayed
teacher
feedback.
has
Yeah.
written down these,
Yes.
and this teacher is going to give remedial teaching. Is it?
What we do, what we encourage, especially in our trainings, is we ask our teachers to note down the language student output, and then share the language with the students at the end. But we encourage sharing good examples of language also, because if you just write the incorrect language, it would be really discouraging. So what they do is, in a way, we try to upgrade our students' language, because this is what they have produced. So obviously there is problem in the language they have produced. So the purpose is, first of all, to help them see the language problems on their own. So rather than the teacher correcting all the grammar problems on the board, we encourage, first of all, student correction. So we put students in pairs again. They talk about the sentences and they try to correct the sentences, and then share with the teacher how they would correct these sentences. Of course, they would put the mark that, for example, could you pass me the pen is correct. So they would say that is correct. So they should be able to identify the correct and incorrect uses, and then they should recommend corrections for the incorrect ones. Of course, if the students cannot manage that, it is the teacher's responsibility to help them with the corrections. Okay, so
just a quick reminder, Mert Hocam, as Aysel Hocam has just stated, some of these sentences are correct. So the teacher wants the students to identify incorrect and correct statements. So of course, what you have asked is an acceptable sentence. That is a correct sentence. So don't worry about it. Aysel Hocam has just clarified it.
Sorry, I hope I haven't misled anyone. All right. So basically, this is a kind of delayed feedback, because when students produce language, they want to know how well they did, right? If they just talk to their friends, the teacher listens to them, and the teacher, of course, gives feedback on the content, what they have discussed. That's important. Before feedback on language in a speaking activity, the primary focus is on the content, whatever the task involves, the teacher should address to the content. There can be a written output of the speaking activity. It can always happen. So the teacher may ask students to post their written work around the class, and the other students then can stand up, walk around, read what others have said, and then they can discuss. So this is always the first thing. Focusing on the content, giving feedback on the content is the first step. I didn't mean that I wouldn't do that. But then, of course, we should be addressing to the language they have produced, because obviously there are some problems. Of course, they are not at the same level. For example, Eskişehir is more cold than my hometown is different from I smoked before, sorry for the typo, but now I don't smoke. There are different levels of learners, probably, there are different levels of grammar mistakes, but the idea here is collecting language samples from the student output, putting them on the board. Of course, when you put these, as I'm going to repeat myself, sorry for that, if you just put the incorrect language, it would be really discouraging for the students. So putting both correct and incorrect language on the board and asking students to decide whether those sentences are correct or incorrect. And if they are incorrect, how they would correct them. That is their task, and they can work in pairs or individually first and then in pairs. This is the end of the lesson. So this is delayed error correction. basically. And the purpose here is to help students with language and to help them see that we are listening to them and we are trying to help them reformulate in a way what they have said. So this is the correct. In the second column, you will see the corrections. So, for example, I smoked before. There is a phrasal verb there. I gave up. So you're in a way introducing this phrasal verb to the students' repertoire. Perfect modal. If there's a correction, probably because students have already studied that. That's why we have that correction. Otherwise, we wouldn't have that. So based on the students' level, if we are expecting some kind of production in the use of that structure, then of course we can include it. But of course, you know very well, some students like taking risks. They try different structures, even if you haven't covered in the lesson yet. So if that's that kind of a structure, you don't need to address in your lesson. It's only the things that you have already covered and you expect your students to be able to use correctly. Or like, I feel very, very tired, I'm exhausted. It's a new, I feel exhausted or I'm exhausted. It's a new adjective to talk about very, very tired, a stronger word. All right. Of course, I also do that. We sometimes try to explain rather than elicit from the students. We don't give students enough credit. I believe they know more than we think they do. So eliciting is one of the things that would help you increase student talking time. Rather than explaining everything to them, you can just ask questions. Of course, eliciting is systematic. And you know what you want to get from the students, so your questions should be ready in advance. It's very systematic, a series of questions, and it gradually takes the students to, well, you elicit what they know and you build the new information on that. So you do elicit for different reasons, but whatever the reason is, rather than you standing up there and talking about it, involve the students, elicit from the students and let them contribute. They would be more engaged in the lesson and they would learn a lot more compared than the lectures. You can elicit pictures, you can elicit structures. There are different things you can elicit. Intolerance to silence. I think silence is scary for most of us. Is there anyone who is not afraid of silence in the classroom? We feel like nothing is happening in the classroom. This goes with wait time, I think. We need to tolerate silence. It's very, very important because students need that quiet time to process whatever is happening in the classroom. Sometimes they need to talk to each other, like in the middle of a grammar lesson. I don't know what your favorite teaching procedure is. If it is good old school presentation practice production while you're presenting, I don't know, John will not like this idea, but I'm talking about learner involved presentation of the structure. At some point you can stop and ask students to explain what they have understood to each other, and maybe give them some time to be quiet and process what you've been eliciting from them in a way. Or you can use guided discovery activities. Then those guided discovery activities will give them a lot of chance to discover the language on their own. So let them be quiet, time to time, and don't be afraid of that silence, because yes, the title is increasing student talking time, but, or let them speak, but sometimes let them be quiet. I think that's also very, very important, because they need to process. There's flow of information, and they need time to process that information. All right. I don't know, I had a slide, but it kind of disappeared. I don't know where it's gone, but before intolerance to silence, I had what increases teacher talking time as the title. I somehow lost my slide anyway. So echoing is another reason, another thing that increases teacher talking time. I do it. I sometimes catch myself echoing what my students are saying. And whenever I catch myself echoing, I just stop and monitor that behavior and try to control it. Because let's say you have 20 students, and each of your students utter a sentence, and you echo each one. So the result is student 1, teacher 20. You are the winner. So don't just try. That's what I do. Whenever I catch myself echoing what the students are saying, I just stop myself. Well, it automatically increases teacher talking time, and students stop listening to each other because they know that there is this teacher there who is going to repeat what their friend has already said. So let them listen to each other. If you feel like, because sometimes when we are close to our students, they kind of whisper. So if you feel that, then you feel like the other students cannot hear what's said. So if that is the case, place yourself to the front of the board. So students would need to speak up, because you are far from the student. So students speak up, you stop echoing, and students listen to each other. And echoing is also an error correction strategy, isn't it? Sometimes you hear an incorrect sentence, you repeat the sentence to the student back, focusing on the incorrect part. So if you echo everything, then the error correction would probably get lost in the process. So our students are very smart. They know what we do and why we do it. So if echoing is an error correction strategy, then I think we should stop echoing students' responses. Remember the score. So, and that's one thing we should keep in mind. I feel like I'm rushing. Anyway, running commentary is another thing that it automatically increases teacher talking time. Running commentary is, let's say, okay, now I'm going to talk about, I'm going to put you in pairs, okay, and then I'll give you handouts. But before that, I need to write on the board the instruction. Then I will tell who is A, who is B. This is teacher talk. And this teacher talk has no use to the student. The teacher is describing what he or she is going to do, is doing, or will do. So sometimes we do it. Our intention is not to describe our actions, but in a way, we find ourselves in that position. We describe actually what we are doing in the classroom. So I'm going to close the door, I'm going to open the window, I'm going to write on the board. Of course, these are exaggerated examples, but I don't know, if you look back your lessons, do you remember any time you use running commentary in your lessons? This automatically increases teacher talking time. All you need to do is, okay, you will work in pairs now. You are A, you are B. Here is your role card. So just set the task and give the instruction rather than telling them what they're going to do. So we are coming to the end. I'm finishing a little earlier than maybe I should have, Aydan Hocam. I hope that is okay. Is there a good teacher talking time? Of course, no one can stop us from talking, right? We will talk, definitely. But the idea here is why? Why are you talking? As long as you have a very good reason to talk in the classroom, yes, you should. And you should, because teacher is one of the sources of comprehensible input. As long as you grade the language, as long as you have a good reason to speak in the classroom, of course you will speak. A good teacher knows. A good teacher knows and balances teacher talking time and student talking time, although the ideal is maximize student talking time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aysel Hocam. In fact, I believe people will have some questions. By the way, Mert Hocam, Kreschen is not popular anymore in our field. He's outdated. So don't worry about whether he would scold us or not. Yes, teacher talk is important, as Aysel Hocam has stated, but of course we need to just learn when to shut up. I mean, as teachers, we just cannot keep our mouths closed. What's wrong with us? Like right now, what I'm doing is not knowing when to shut up, you know? Well, it was only for demonstration purposes, Aysel Hocam.
I'm glad you did it, Hocam.
Okay, my dear colleagues, if you have any questions, please either raise your hand and ask your own question or drop your question in the chat box so that I can address it to Aysel Hocam. Yeah, Noam Chomsky is also still alive and still doing research. But these people are, I mean, yeah, once upon a time, they were important people, yes. But they are not anymore. Some of these theories have been debunked, especially Kreschen's theories have been debunked. But he's, I don't know, he has a very good marketing strategy. He knows how to sell his ideas. So maybe that is the area that he should teach us.
Yeah, he's more into politics right now, right?
Noam Chomsky is.
Yes.
Not Kreschen. Kreschen is making a lot of money, so he won't go into politics, that's for sure. Aysel Hocam, while we are waiting for the students to come up with questions, I want to ask, not ask, but say something.
Sure.
When you were referring to the delayed correction part, feedback part, you have noted down a sentence. It was like, maybe I left my phone in the kitchen. And then you said the correct form is, I might have left my phone in the... Now, isn't language rich? Aren't there different ways of saying something? Do we really have to talk like the royal family? Like, I might have left my phone in the kitchen? Or is it okay if we, and our students use the language of John in the street. Like, maybe I left my phone in the kitchen. Is it wrong?
It's not. Thank you,
Okay.
John. It's a very good question. I think it's the teacher's job to acknowledge students that they are both acceptable,
Mm-hmm.
they are both correct grammatically, but the teacher may compare, so present the students with an alternative, another way of saying it. That's why we call it, in a way, upgrading or reformulating. So teaching them a different way of saying the same thing. If I don't know if I could have answered the question.
Yeah. Okay. So it is providing alternatives. It is not
Yes.
correction, but you can also say it like
sometimes,
this.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, because when
likewise, sorry,
I'm sorry,
likewise,
go ahead.
I'm very, very tired is also not that incorrect.
Yeah, I would
Right?
say it.
Yeah, I would.
I always say it.
Yeah, especially in Turkish, I say it.
Yeah.
But
When we communicate with native speakers, once upon a time, it was years ago, maybe 25, 30 years ago, one of my American friends said, "You speak bookish English."
Yeah, I know.
And by the way, I haven't learned English. By the way, I'm using present perfect tense because I haven't completed it yet. I'm still learning it.
Yeah, that's what I keep saying too.
Yeah. They use direct method at our school. So I never learned grammar translation via grammar translation method. It was direct method. And my native friend accused me of being bookish. And he said, and I lost my chance with him. I was young then, and I had some chance with him, but speaking bookish English destroyed everything, including my dreams. He said it is disturbing. He said it's annoying because it doesn't sound like he's talking to a friend. It sounds like he's talking to someone who is, who thinks that they are above everyone, patronizing others. So, of course, we cannot use street English. That is too informal. Someone says your books prepared you for Buckingham Palace. Yes, Buckingham Palace. I wish. So I think as language teachers, we should keep improving our language skills, leaving the book language, book dialect, whatever you call it, aside, and scatter some daily common phrases,
I'm
otherwise,
totally with you.
Yeah, otherwise students will suffer a lot.
Yeah, as teachers, there are very thick books on the grammar of spoken English, for example. Yeah, we should be aware of the difference between the grammar of spoken and written English, and we should, of course, if you're teaching for written language, then it's a different story. But if you're teaching for communication spoken language, it's a different story. That's why we teach connected speech, for example, elision and intrusive sounds. That's why we teach those, because they are the features of the spoken language. Yeah, I'm totally with you, Hocam, there. Okay. So teaching them alternatives, giving them choices is very, very important. This is one way of saying it. It's okay, but.
Yeah, okay. By the way, please raise your hands. Keep calm. No one will need an ELT teacher in maximum 50 years. Yeah, I couldn't understand the message there.
I don't know. I think we are going to be, well, probably I will not be around in 50 years, but
I was going to say the same thing. I mean, Buray Hocam,
I don't care, whatever
are
happens.
you talking to us? Definitely, I do not have 50 more years.
Yeah, me too.
Well, unless
Oh,
they
man.
find the fountain of youth soon,
Yeah.
language chips will be set on the minds.
If they're
Well.
gonna do it, they should do it sooner than later.
We don't have much time. The clock is ticking, for God's sake. Be quick. If you're going to come up with a technology like that, please be quick. Okay, you don't have any questions? See, Aysel Hocam, sometimes this is the problem. The teacher wants the students to talk, but the students don't want to talk.
Maybe I can send them to breakout rooms so that in pairs they can work together and come up with some questions, Hocam.
I don't know. Do you want to do that? They
I'm
may
kidding.
escape.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm not gonna do that. Of course,
I mean, I can see this in their eyes right now. They're like begging with their eyes. I know you're tired, but tomorrow is holiday. Come on, you're gonna rest tomorrow. Okay, Peki Hocam.
I don't know.
Students do not talk. Whatever you do, you have done everything that a teacher can do, and they don't talk. What are you gonna do?
A good question. Oh, it depends, I guess. It's been claiming that it's claimed that, I guess. All right. I don't know. It's a very good question. Let's pass the question on our participants, young teachers. What do you do?
Have you ever experienced something like this, my dear colleagues? You have brought an excellent activity to the classroom. You have done the scaffolding part. You have prepared the first steps. The schemata is activated. Everything is ready, but still they don't talk. What have you done? Do you have any experiences like that?
Magical stick?
Okay.
Maybe they're experiencing language anxiety. That's why they don't talk.
Okay.
And we can maybe go on this and we can examine the reasons.
Okay. So are you suggesting that we should have a kind of cry on my shoulder session? Is it like, guys, why aren't you talking? Just look at me like a psychiatrist. I want to solve this problem. Tell me. Talk about your childhood.
Maybe face to face, Hocam, alone, not with the whole class.
Okay, not with the whole class. Okay.
Esma Hocam, thank you for that. I think this reminds me the rapport we should establish with our students at the very beginning. I think that's the key. They should feel secure in the classroom. And the way you react when they make a mistake is also very important. The other students' reactions when there is a mistake, when a mistake is made by one of the students. So establishing a good rapport and creating a safe and secure environment and giving them the message that making mistake is, I'm sure I have made a lot of mistakes this evening. So making mistake is a natural part of learning language, as I've been learning English for 41 or more than 41 years probably. So I've been learning English. I'm still learning English. So, and making mistake is a natural part of learning language. So I think, of course, walking the talk is also very important. You will say this at the beginning of the lesson and you will reinforce this idea, but of course, your actions should support this. If you say this, but make a face when your student make a mistake, for example, then you're contradicting yourself and you are discouraging your student. So it starts from the beginning, I guess. From the beginning, the first time you meet your students, the rapport you establish with them, the way you approach errors when mistakes, when student, I'm using error and mistake without caring about the difference between the two.
Don't worry about it. Okay.
So the idea there is the students should get the correct message from you, and
They should learn to trust each other.
Exactly.
They should learn to trust the teacher, and they should learn when and how to laugh together, but not at each other.
Exactly.
And they should learn how to. They should learn how to learn from mistakes. They should experience this. So without experiencing this, they still fear of making mistakes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yaşar Hocam says, because the mic does not work properly, he has written it down in the chat box. I try to give them choices. Also, at the beginning of the semester, I ask them their preferences, likes and dislikes in a speaking lesson. Then I plan my lesson accordingly. So Yaşar Hocam is suggesting that if students have a say, if they have some contribution to the decisions, the topics that you bring to the class, they will be more motivated. Is that, Yaşar Hocam, is that what you're saying?
Thank you, Yaşar Hocam. It's a very good point. Yeah, sometimes the book we use in the class with our students is given to us. We don't have any say on the selection of the books, but we can always adapt the materials in the book. We may keep the idea of the speaking task, but we may totally change the topic. So at the beginning of the semester, giving out a survey asking students what they like talking about, what they would like to talk about is a very good idea. So when you bring that topic up, they cannot say anything. You can say, okay, this is what you have picked. These are your choices. So yeah, I really like the idea. I remember doing that many moons ago.
Pars Hocam, by the way, there is a very strong debate about tomato being a vegetable. Some people classify it as fruit. So but of course, don't put it in a fruit salad, please. That will be very bad.
It would spoil it, right?
Yes, definitely.
I keep it in my mind. Thank you.
Yeah, I know students sometimes come up with crazy answers. Sometimes they do it just to get on your nerves.
Exactly.
Or they feel bored and they want to play with you. As a teacher, you're the best toy that they can have in the classroom.
Especially teenagers.
Yeah, sometimes they want to see how much they can push you. But as I've said before, if you laugh together with them, they will trust you more, believe me. But if you insult them, if you try to patronize them, if you try to degrade them, what? Are you an idiot? The tomato definitely is not. But today, in our modern day, everything has changed. I mean, believe me, I need to check everything twice nowadays. So I can never say 2 times 2 is 4 anymore. I check the answer first. Sometimes it's 5, believe me, especially when you're dealing with human beings, when you're dealing with emotions more than reason.
Yeah, I think being friendly is very important. We don't need to be their friends, but being friendly, having a good rapport, being approachable is very important. Students should, well, last week, one of my students came to my office. She was very shy and she was She said that she wanted to speak in the classroom, but she couldn't be sure of her English. So she was afraid of making mistakes, and she's a perfectionist. That's why, I guess. And we had a nice chat, and I tried to encourage her as much as I could. I don't know, well, I will keep observing her in my lessons, and I'll try to encourage her more, but it will take time for her to overcome the fear of making mistakes, because when they come to our classes, we don't know what kind of an experience they had. Maybe the feedback she received when she spoke was so harsh that she was discouraged. I don't know. I don't know what they've been through. So it's our job.
And culturally as well, as a society, we are unable to tolerate. I don't know why, but for example, we love an American or a Brit speaking broken Turkish. We love it.
That's right.
We act as if we have just seen a kitten. You know, how cute, how cute. But if a Turk speaks in broken English, oh my God, we are the queen. What is this English? Yeah. Why can't we tolerate our learners like we tolerate Americans and Brits trying to speak in Turkish?
Yeah, I'm watching MasterChef. This is a confession.
Okay.
And Danilo, he's Italian.
The Italian chef, right.
Yeah, his Turkish is full of mistakes.
Yeah.
But he's very fluent. He's communicating, and well, some pronunciation problems cause miscommunication, but still, we all like I like the way he talks. So yeah, a very good point. We cannot tolerate. Of course, we should keep in mind that this is interlanguage. We always forget that students are in the process of developing their L2, and of course, it doesn't happen overnight. And we should be patient. We should support them. We should give them, we should encourage them, and we should, well, rather than reprimanding them for the mistakes they have made, we should notice them and plan our next lesson. For example, if it is a common problem, we can say, okay, I'm going to review this unit with this kind of an activity. Or if it is one of the students' problem, then we can say, okay, you have problems in the structure. Why don't you study this unit in this book and practice it a little more? So any language student produces in the classroom is an input for our next lesson or for our lesson planning in a way, material selection. So because, and if they do not produce any language in the classroom, how will we know whether the input is turning to intake? The only evidence we have is the output. And we shouldn't discourage output. It's a must.
Yeah. Mert Hocam has a question.
Okay.
What would be your advice to sustain a calm and partially silent atmosphere during speaking activities so that the rest of the class can easily hear and listen to what others say? So we are talking about now people respecting each other, listening to each other. When someone is speaking, they keep calm and silent, pay attention to the friend who is speaking. How can you create that atmosphere, he says?
I think we should, at some point in our lessons, we should, well, this is something they should already be doing in their L1, right? Listening to each other respectfully and interrupting in a polite way, and then taking the floor. So they should be doing it. We assume that they are already doing it in their L1. So we would expect them to transfer this to L2 because this is a skill that they can transfer to L2 because it's universal communication. If it's not the case, we can highlight at some point in our lessons, turn taking, how we signal that we are finished and the floor is the other person's, how we can interrupt politely. So we can teach them the rules of conversation, of course, depending on the age of the student, we should find an appropriate way of doing it, but we should raise awareness. I think it's rather than teaching, it is raising awareness. We should help students notice all these features, rules of social interaction, if I may say.
Yeah, yeah. And you can also use tasks for listeners.
Sure.
Every now and then, for example, you can use red palette, green palette kind of thing. So you say, okay, listen to your friend. If you agree with him, raise your green palette. If don't, red one. Or you can say, if you have the same answer, raise the green one. If you have a different answer, raise the red one. So that will keep them alert. Or you can say, if it's a group game, for example, if you find a mistake in your friend's answer, you will get a point.
Yeah,
divide and conquer. Make enemies of each other. No, just kidding, of course. But you can give tasks, definitely.
I totally agree, Hocam, especially when we give feedback to the content, when we ask groups to report back what they have discussed. Generally, students do not pay attention to what others are saying. So I think in that case, our purpose is to set a task to find similarities, differences, for example, to say if they agree or disagree with what is said by the other group. So we should definitely set a purpose for the listeners, for the audience when the groups are reporting. Otherwise, they are just occupied with what they are going to say next, and they don't pay attention to what the other groups are saying.
Yeah.
So they should have a purpose, like a listening lesson. We always say when you set a listening, when you do a listening lesson, you should always give your students a purpose for listening. How is this different from a listening lesson? It's live listening. They are listening to each other. So we should definitely give them a purpose to listen to each other. Then they can, for example, listen to your friends, and if it's one of your answers is included, don't repeat it. Just say the new idea, for example. Kind of.
Yeah. Özlem Hocam says, Hocam, some of the students are inclined to talk more. However, some of them are shy. How can we encourage the shy students to speak more?
Many years ago, I gave a session on collaborative learning. And one of the things that collaborative learning encourages is assigning roles to students. If it is a big group, let's say it's a group of 4, you can say one of you is the chair, the other is secretary, one of them is timekeeper, one of them is gatekeeper, so no one goes free. So the chair's job is to make sure that everyone participates equally. So no one dominates or no one free rides, because some of those students are shy, or some of them are not just interested in talking. So and you can rotate these roles. Each time you do a group work with your students, you can just assign a different responsibility to a different student. So once you start rotating the roles, they would know how it feels to be the chair, for example, timekeeper, secretary, and that kind of role assignment, in a way, I cannot say it ensures, but that's one thing you can do to make sure that everyone contributes more or less equally during the group work.
Yeah. And Özlem Hocam, you don't need to have discussions and debates. You can have, as I've said before, games. I love games because in games, you can encourage your students to use one phrase or one clause or one sentence. And since it is already given, students don't feel panicky. It's there. So this is like very much like taking baby steps. First, they just say given sentences or clauses, slowly increase their role, slowly. Of course, I mean, I'm a French learner as well. If you just tell me to explain air pollution in French, I would just freeze and die, you know. What? How can I do that? But if you just say, if you give me a clause and give me a role in a game, I keep saying games because games are contexts.
Yeah.
Then I can easily say that, alter that statement. So as the teacher, you can always adapt and help you lead the way.
Exactly.
Okay, lead the way. So you're the leader more than a teacher.
If I may say, you have a new group of students and you don't know what kind of a learning experience your students had. So maybe they are coming from a classroom where the lessons were always carried out in a teacher-fronted whole class fashion. So students were not allowed to talk at all. So then it is your job, I guess, and it's our job to teach our students different ways of learning English and be patient because they will not get used to speaking in a very short time. Yeah. So, but once they are in your classroom and once speaking, pair work, group work is a component of your lesson on regular basis, and if you start with baby steps, as Aydın Hocam was saying, then in time you will be surprised how talkative those students are. So if it is not part of their learning experience, they will be reluctant, definitely. They will not want to talk, they will be shy, but give them time, give them chance to practice it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this happened to me with, well, a lot, in fact, with my students, because I kind of encourage them a lot. So it becomes like the Turkish expression, 1 lira verdim konuşturmaya, 5 lira verdim susturamıyorum. You know, kind of thing. When they start talking, they talk a lot. But it's a wonderful feeling knowing that you have started a fire. Yeah. It's a wonderful feeling. So Aysel Hocam, thank you very much for this excellent presentation. Well, very insightful. And in fact, you helped us to re-question what we do in the classroom, how we work with our students. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Hocam. I appreciate this opportunity. I got together with my colleagues, very young colleagues, former students. It's amazing. I hope I've been useful.
Oh, definitely. No question about that.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And as usual, my dear colleagues, thank you very much for not leaving us here alone, because we would gossip behind your back if you hadn't shown up. So thank you very much for being with us. And don't forget that tomorrow is the most important national holiday in our country. We feel so proud of it. Celebrate, definitely. And wish you happy Republic Day and have very nice evening. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.